11 years old, it was a big cat museum.
Pamela Gray was chosen by Variety magazine as one of the 10 screenwriters to watch A Walk on the Moon, Music of the Heart, and now Conviction. 3 movies you've written the screenplay for. Welcome to the show, Pamela.
Thank you so much.
How many drafts did you have to write before you came up with the final?
Oh my God. Well, this process was an 8-year process. It was a movie that came together, fell apart, came together, and during each period of time, I rewrote. So the first draft took about 9 months because I spent 3 months doing research, including meeting with Betty Ann Waters. And there's so much rewriting as you're writing, and I worked with Tony Goldwyn, the director. We went through every part of the story together. There wasn't one word he didn't read before I turned it into the producers and the studio. And then it just felt like it just kept going. And we had a draft that felt ready to be shot probably 2 years in. And it was about to be a movie, and then it fell apart, which is a lot of what happens in a screenwriter's career. And then when it came back together again, a few years later, it was as if the process started again. I still had the script to work off of, but I'd had time to rethink things. Tony had had time. Betty Ann Waters had had more memories to share. And we built in all these new layers, and we took out a lot of things that had been there the first 2 years.
So the final script was ready when?
Rehearsal?
Oh,
No,
okay.
during the casting process.
Okay.
So, I would say 6 months before production, 6 to 8 months, that script was done and then was completed. And then once you have actors and you get their input, there were things that got changed before we got to set. And I'm always very excited to hear actor input, because I become the characters when I'm writing, but as a writer, I'm not an actor. And watching them become the characters and find things that I hadn't found or ask questions that I hadn't gotten answers to for myself really helps. It helps in the writing process. It was such a gift to be on the set and to rewrite on the set.
So you did rewrite on the set?
Oh, absolutely. Same with Walk on the Moon.
If you were to reduce the storyline in 2 sentences, describe it. How did you describe it to yourself, the movie?
This is the true story of Betty Ann Waters, a working class woman, high school dropout, mother of 2, who decides to become a lawyer to get her brother out of prison when she believes he's been wrongfully convicted. And that was pretty much the story. Tony Goldwyn, those were the words he said to me when he called me up and he said, I found this amazing story and I want you to write it. And that was all I needed, but I didn't even know how phenomenal it was until I met Betty Ann Waters.
And how did you, the feeling when you see the movie is there's a certain fluidity and there's a certain minimalistic quality even around dialogues. You see the emotions come through, though. It's not a very wordy film. There aren't too many dialogues. And the first one sets the pace and the tone for the movie. Betty Ann Waters defined what's a contract.
Yes.
How did you come up with that line?
I knew from Betty Ann that her first day of law school, in every class, she was the one who got asked to stand up and answer a question.
Why was that?
It just turned out that way. She said, oh my God, it's me again. So I knew that happened, but I didn't know what the case would be. And so I wanted it to represent in some way what the movie was about. And for some reason I couldn't reach Betty Ann. I have a friend who's a lawyer. And I said, give me the example of a case that has to do with contract, broken promises, oaths, and actually the scene, got edited out.
Okay.
It was a very specific case about a promise that was made, broken, repaired. So, I wanted it to seem natural, and I think she said it was her contracts class, Betty Ann, or that was one of her first classes. But it's something that I want to reverberate, but you don't realize it maybe till later that that's how the movie starts, or her first day of law school starts.
Yes. And what did Betty Ann Waters think of the movie when she saw it finally?
She was so emotional the first time she saw it that she couldn't speak. She saw it with Aber Rice, played by Minnie Driver, and they were both overcome with emotion, more so Betty Ann. And then when she was able to articulate it, and I was with her and her family for the second time she saw it, she could say, I love this, this is me, that's Kenny, this is what happened, this is the truth.
So that's the biggest compliment.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's who I wrote it for Betty Ann and Kenny.
You taught yourself how to write TV episodes before going on
Yes.
to UCLA to do screenwriting
Yes.
class. What advice would you give to somebody who's got a passion for these, for writing or being in movies, and they want to, but do you have to have a degree?
Not at all. Not at all. You have to somehow learn how to be a better screenwriter or television writer, which requires writing. writing, and more writing. You can take classes, you can read books. I did everything. I was so excited when I figured out that this is what I wanted to be when I grew up. I was almost 30. I was like, okay, I figured it out. Now let's learn how to do it. Film school, you can have great mentors. One of the best things that comes out of film school is you now have permission to be a screenwriter full-time. You're in film school to be a screenwriter, and you don't have to think, well, I'm not really a screenwriter, or I should have a day job. You get
Is
to
that
do
important to get that kind of permission?
Yes, absolutely. You have to be able to fight the voices that say, I can't do this. I shouldn't have this dream. This is a crazy dream, and I don't deserve this. And you have to just be able to do the work. And but you just need to write a good script. And I think one of the problems is people are too impatient. They write a screenplay and they think, well, I'm done. I rewrote it once, now I'm going to try and find an agent. Screenwriting is rewriting. I'm not saying anything that isn't said by other writers. You have to work it to death and make sure that that script is ready to be read. But I think the film industry, there's such high stakes. People think, oh my God, I'm going to sell this, I'm going to get $1 million, which doesn't happen like it used to and rarely happened. And they just want to get it out. And it is the hardest writing I have done. Never written a novel, but short stories, poetry, longer short stories, plays. For me, there is nothing harder than screenwriting, and it gets harder with every script. The more I know, the harder it is.
And this must have been a hard one to write.
This was a very hard one to write, but I loved writing it. But oh my God, that material, or that epic amount of just story, there was so much story. And I never had to make up an obstacle. I had to figure out which ones to leave out.
Yes.
So it was very hard, but I was
That was the question I was
passionate
going
for
to.
it.
That's the question I was going to ask. How difficult was it for you to figure out what to leave and what to keep? Because you had mountains and mountains.
Mountains. Well, you have to keep your story moving forward. So if there was too much going on and you felt that the stakes weren't rising, that you have to feel like things are getting worse and worse and worse. And even though there were so many things making the situation worse, I had to pick and choose. You had to climb the mountain in bigger steps. If you had too many increments, the movie was going to slow down. So, I started out wanting to put many more stepping stones in, and then you have to cull out what's most important. There were more than 2 people who tried to ruin Kenny's life. Those were the 2 main ones, the Juliette Lewis character and the Clea Duvall character, and of course the police officer. But there are many more witnesses, and again, do we need all of them? Do we need every person who lied in court? What was important is that he was put into prison based on lies. You didn't have to hear every single one. So those are the kinds of choices you make.
You have 10 cats.
Was that in the bio? Yes, I have 10 cats.
I did my research.
And I do cat rescue, and I work with big cats. These are tiger stripes from some tigers I knew. I was a volunteer
Okay.
zookeeper at a big cat breeding compound. I adore them. And I heard of, this book wasn't even written at the time I
When
went
did you
after
get this
project.
tattoo?
This one is about 11 years old. It was after Walk on the Moon got made.
Okay.
And I have, you can't see it, I have a newer one on my back with a cat, and one of my cats
So we're
in my
talking
garden.
to Catwoman.
You are talking to Catwoman, and I am a proud Catwoman. And I work with cat rescue organizations. You know, I believe writers, but particularly screenwriters, need another passion. If your entire existence is based on, will I get a movie made, you'll go nuts. You have to have something else that's important to you. And I always had this. I always loved cats, but I was in film school when I started volunteering at the big cat zoo. You know, I was writing Betty Ann Waters when I started working with this feral cat organization where I live. Something has to be beyond the writing, and this is my passion, my other one.
Pamela, it was such a wonderful opportunity to talk to you. Thank you
so
so much.